And that's true of all his verses, including those thought to be about 9/11.
And what one needs to do in looking at a verse like this is to say, well, what is it referring back to? Because virtually all Nostradamus' verses are referring back to historical events or whatever.
So what about the quatrain that it's claimed made Nostradamus' name? The one about the joust. The one that's claimed was his very first successful prediction.
The young lion will overcome the old one, hand to hand on the field of combat.
Nostradamus himself, during his lifetime, never ever thought that this quatrain predicted the death of Henry II. We know from correspondence with other persons that he had that he actually selected a totally different quatrain, not the quatrain that every one of the interpreters think is one of the most famous examples of how right Nostradamus was.
In fact, when you look at that verse, 135, you'll see that in fact it can't really apply. It says it happens on a battlefield. It didn't happen in a battlefield. It talks about 2 fleets or 2 armies. There weren't 2 fleets or 2 armies. Whereupon, of course, people start twisting the words. This is a standard method with Nostradamus. You twist the words, or you twist the event, or indeed you twist both. And this is what most of the current Nostradamus industry is based on.
Human beings have a fathomless appetite for superstition, cant, hypocrisy, nonsense, and general rhubarb. And he is their great prophet, really.
It seems certain that Nostradamus didn't successfully predict 9/11, Hitler, or indeed anything else. Does that mean he is completely irrelevant now? Not according to Mario Redding. He says he can use Nostradamus to tell us what is going to happen in the future.
This is a controversial quatrain that appears to suggest the assassination of a world leader.
Apparently, President Bush faces a deadly threat. In an apparent age of science and reason, Nostradamus is more famous today than ever. Perhaps there's a psychological explanation for his enduring popularity.
There'll always be a market for soothsayers and prophecies of various kinds. Paradoxically, I think the amazing march of science makes people even more keen to go back to the supernatural. People find science and the overwhelming amount of knowledge we have now actually quite frightening. And some sort of something that they can kind of understand, some secret book, somebody who knows more just by magic, is appealing.
If you look at the latest surveys into paranormal belief, into belief in prophecy and precognition, still about half of the population think it's possible. So even though we're surrounded by science and technology, we still buy into this idea that some people have the ability to see into the future. And I think that simply makes us feel good. It also adds a sense of mystery to the world. Suddenly science can't explain everything.
Despite his psychological appeal, there's no evidence Nostradamus was a prophet. And the only thing that would ever convince his critics would be if someone could use him today to make a prediction before an event. Mario Redding is willing to do exactly that.
One is taking quite a risk in predicting things for the future through a reading of Nostradamus. But I think in the case of certain quatrains, it seems to be pretty categorical. Because they disapproved of his divorce, a man who later they considered unworthy, the people will force out the king of the islands. A man will replace him who never expected to be king. I think we can assume that it's about Charles. It is not William who follows his father, but possibly Harry. Now, why that should be, I have no idea. Nostradamus doesn't make it clear.
Mario Redding says he has an even more troubling prediction.
This is a controversial quatrain that appears to suggest the assassination of a world leader sometime from 2006 onwards. The quatrain reads, "The successor will avenge his handsome brother." He will take over the realm under cover of vengeance. The obstacles slain, his dead blood seethes. Well, in line 2 here, we have one of the classic Nostradamian codes, which is sous ombre, which is beneath shelter out in a desert, i.e. under a bush. So my reading of this is that there may be an assassination attempt on President Bush. And in this context, if that were to happen, Nostradamus also foresees a pretty grim aftermath.
If this prediction doesn't come to pass, it may have an effect on Mario Redding's reputation, but it probably won't affect that of Nostradamus.